Hello and welcome to the M is for Mama podcast. I'm your host, Abby Halberstadt, happy wife, mama to 10, including these two guys, and Bible-believing Christian. On today's show, I have such a privilege to get to interview and talk to my two teenagers, Simon, who is 15 years old, and Ezra, who is 16. He'll be 17 in about a month or so. And the reason that I have them on today is that they are genuinely two of my favorite human beings on the planet. So that would be reason enough. But also because I get asked so many questions about the whole teenage phase. If you follow me on Instagram or any of my social media, have read any of my blogs, have read my book, you know that I do not subscribe to the popular idea that teenagers are, quote, the worst. Part of that is because I think it does a great disservice to any stage or any particular group of people to label them the worst. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. If I say to some group of people, hey, I'm expecting you to be the worst, very likely they're going to live up to my very low expectations. However, if we say to a group of people, teenagers specifically in this case, hey, I like you. I know that this is a hard stage in some ways because of developmental things, because of hormones, because of more responsibility, because of life changes, because of kind of you're wanting to be freer, but still being under the responsibility and control and discipline and guidance of your parents. Like, I get all that. But I think that we're going to do this well together and that we're going to have the Lord as our guide and we're going to be okay. That's a way, am I right? That's a more encouraging way to approach a group of people than to simply tell them, I think this is going to be terrible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Yeah. So, yes. And so when I get all these questions from people either that are terrified of this stage because they've been told, just you wait. You think toddlers are bad, just you wait until teenagers. You're going to lose your mind. Or they see someone, me in some cases, or someone else, and they say, you know what? They look like they actually like this. What are they doing that's making it different than what the culture says, than what the media shows? Then that's what we're here to answer today. That's what we're here to talk about. So I'm going to start with you, Ezra. Why do you think that teenagers get such a bad rap in society?
Well, as you said, people expect them to be bad, and you kind of have a hard time not seeing what you're expecting to see. So if you expect something to be bad, what else is it going to do? It's going to be bad.
Absolutely. And what about Simon's specific behaviors? What kind of things do you feel like teenagers are known for doing that would make people dread them?
Probably like rebellion.
Yeah.
Biggest one.
Yeah, rebellion would be the biggest one. Manifesting in talking back, absolutely refusing to do what your parents have asked you to do. Or, as is the case sometimes in this house, including with me, sometimes we do things and we don't have the best attitude while we do them. And I think one of the biggest things that teenagers are known for is, quote, a bad attitude. Which again, self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Mm. Now, are there legitimate things, do you think, that contribute to genuinely bad attitudes where you're struggling? Y'all know, having seen me be pregnant and postpartum and all that multiple times, that I'm not much of a crier, right? I'm not prone to crying. Except when
you're pregnant.
When I'm pregnant or when I've just had a baby. And why is that?
Because of your hormones.
Because of my hormones. I know. And sometimes you just have to be straight with your kids and say, I am struggling in this time because the chemicals in my body are not doing what they normally do. I feel weird. And I think we can make that, it's not an excuse, but we can give that grace to ourselves as moms, but we're not as quick to give that grace to our kids. And so do y'all feel like there are times, Simon, I'll ask you, do you feel like there are times when you're just irritable or angry and you probably couldn't even say why?
Yeah, for sure. Some days you just don't feel as good.
Yeah.
As other days.
Some days you roll out of bed irritated, right? Not you, anybody.
Right.
And I've experienced that. And I notice some days when you feel that way or Ezra feels that way or my other kids, but it's different when they're teenagers. It just hits different. It does, because you've got, in the case of young men, you've got testosterone raging, you've got bodies changing, you've got muscles growing, you've got sleep patterns changing, you've got growing pains. You've got a lot that you've got to assimilate and fight against. And so there have been times, absolutely, when I would say that we have dealt with I mean, of course we've dealt with bad attitudes, but things that I absolutely could say, there's not a real reason for this, but we're still going to have to work through this. So the number one thing that I'm going to recommend to you in those seasons where you're like, I don't know what's going on. They've gone from, and I hear this a lot, they've gone from being the sweetest kids to fighting with me over everything, to having a bad attitude, to pushing back on the silliest stuff. Why in the world? Like Simon and I got in a fight over salad, and it had nothing to do with salad. I set a bad example by being snippy to my husband. I've actually talked about this in a different episode, and Simon was then snippy to me about salad because he doesn't particularly love salad. But was it really about salad?
No, not really.
Not in that particular case, though he isn't a fan of salad.
I love salad.
Yes, so it's very true. Now, it is funny because when Simon and Ezra were growing up, people would often mistake them for twins. They are 18 months apart. They were different sizes. They looked, I mean, not that everybody has to be an identical twin, obviously, but they were different sizes. They looked different, and they are such different personalities. So it always made me giggle that people were like, oh, are they twins? No. And the whole love salad and hate salad thing is a perfect example of the fact that your teenagers are going to have very different preferences. So Ezra, can you tell me I know, I already know, you don't need to tell me. Can you tell the people listening a little bit about yourself and what you like to do and kind of who you are as a human being?
Whoa. I mean, I like things to be orderly. I like to be...
you wouldn't know that if you saw his side of the room sometimes.
Don't look at my room. I actually did clean it earlier today. But still, I kind of like to be more organized. I want to be a software developer. I kind of like languages and math and more that kind of thing. And I mean, I love sports, but I kind of like indoor stuff. I don't really like being outside so much.
Which we live in East Texas, and it's a million degrees with 5,000% humidity, so that has something to do with it. So that's kind of a little bit of Ezra in a nutshell. And are you a professing believer in Jesus Christ?
Yes, I am.
Yes, and he is such a model young man in many ways in his desire to grow in the Lord. We will never get there till glory, but I've been really encouraged by seeing his maturity grow and grow. He started Bible studies that he's helped lead, and he reads his Bible voluntarily, and he sets a good example for the rest of our family. And so I'm so grateful to have him as our firstborn. And I think that that's something, I don't always do perfect with my speech, right? Right. We can all agree. Because that's everybody. Nobody does perfectly with their speech. But I think some people are more prone to gentle speech than others. I have to work hard at gentle speech, and I can be very direct, which I don't think is a bad thing. But I think that I do a decent job of encouraging speech. Yes. So I do a decent job of telling you when I notice. And so I am so happy that Simon is my second born. Will you tell them a little bit about yourself?
I'm kind of the opposite from Ezra. I much prefer being outside to being indoors. But definitely very into sports. Play football, love basketball, and pretty much every sport. I mean, I love to be outside. That's my favorite thing. Yeah,
it is his favorite thing. But the funny thing is, the orderly thing is still there. If you watch this boy chop ingredients, that's another thing you love to do.
Oh, yeah. I like to cook.
He likes to cook, and he's quite good at it and naturally good at it. Ezra will cook, but it's not his favorite thing. And so, yeah, you do enjoy it. I wouldn't say you enjoy it quite as much as Simon. Yeah. So it's not an opposite thing. And, no one is going to have these perfectly set up, like, this is my category, this is your category, and they don't overlap. Because you guys do have a lot of overlapping friends and a lot of overlapping interests. And, I mean, how would you describe each other at this stage other than brothers? Would you say that you guys are good friends?
Yeah, we're pretty good friends.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, and you gotta be macho when you're a 16 and a 15-year-old. But I mean, I would say they've pretty much always been best buddies, that they have grown up doing most things together, that they are supportive of each other, that they are kind to each other in their speech, not always, but as a general rule, because we can't say always. It's never going to be perfect. And I don't want this podcast to sound like I am presenting to you two perfect paragons of young manhood, even though I absolutely think that they are exceptional and wonderful examples. And again, I'm so grateful that I get to be their mama. So some of the other questions that I get asked, and one that I specifically got asked on What Do You Want to Know Wednesday, is how do you foster, and they were specifically asking about young men, because I think as moms, as women, we're like, how do I bridge that gap? Maybe I'm not super into, I love sports. So Simon and I will throw the football together.
Yeah.
We'll play basketball together. I totally jammed the tar out of my thumb the other day playing him. He did, but I also had a sprained thumb for 3 weeks afterwards. So, but it was worth it. It was totally worth it. How do you make that connection going from maybe not having the same interests, you're not the same gender, you're not at the same stage in life, you have different responsibilities. How do you bridge that gap, especially with dudes? And so I was thinking about doing a podcast on teenagers anyway, because I get asked this so much. But I thought, hey, I can tell you all the things I think are working, but how about I go to the source and ask them? And so, Ezra, can you give me 2 things that you think that have contributed to what I consider a close relationship? Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I mean, I can tell you love spending time with us, that you love hanging out with us, and that's kind of a big thing to show that you love somebody, that to hang out with them, you love hanging out with them. So that's kind of, you love, you said, playing sports with Simon. That's one of the things. You play sports with us, you love hanging out with us. You watch movies with us. We have like movie night sometimes, or it's just us, and I really like that time. So
yeah. So my mom, who was on the podcast a couple of episodes ago, will sometimes take some of our middle kids, and we'll just have the older kids home and the babies. And so sometimes Sean is traveling, or we have a particular night where that happens, and he and I are both home, or just I'm home. And we try to make that kind of a kid date night if we can, and do something fun, like get a yummy snack, pick out a movie to watch together, play a game. We love to play Nerds. Ezra and I like to play ping pong. I usually win.
yeah, it's true.
It's the truth.
We haven't played in a bit.
It's true. We haven't played in a bit, but I would still win, I think.
Yeah, she would.
Hey.
So yeah, I appreciate that Ezra recognizes that I enjoy spending time with him, and that I look for opportunities to do that, because it's true. I like my kids. I think they're cool people. And in our episode about escaping the whirlpool of mom negativity, I talked about the concept of changing your mindset. And so you may be thinking, you know what? I don't enjoy my teenager right now, honestly. We feel like we're butting heads about everything. And if you want to go back and listen to that episode, I give you some very practical tips about what it looks like to go from feeling that way and being like, this is my truth, I can't escape this, to actually being able to escape from that, truly. Feel free from that. And while you may not enjoy every moment, and you may be doing more disciplining than you would like, and you may still butt heads some, being able to see them as a source of joy when you choose that. Simon, same question to you. What do you think are some ways that I have done a good job of showing you that I like you, and that I want to be around you, and that I like being your mom?
Like Ezra said, you like to hang out with us. I can tell that because, I mean, you do a lot. Specifically for me, I like to cook a lot, and she's the one who taught me how to do that, and we've done it together a lot, and it's really fun. So yeah.
What about shuffle dancing?
Oh, yeah, that's it. We do dance together. That's pretty cool.
So Simon's got rhythm in his bones. I remember specifically we were at a family wedding in Vail, Colorado, where my girls were the flower girls in the wedding. And, you know, we're a Christian family. We don't listen to tons of secular music. We're not into raunchy lyrics. And we're not in a lot of situations where we're going to be listening to hip hop or anything like that, or just kind of what's popular at the moment. Like, that's not our jam. But I remember after the wedding, they had a dance floor. And if you are in a Christian conservative community, a lot of times there isn't dancing after the wedding. So this was a totally new thing for my kids. And so they were playing, you know, the beats that get in your bones and get you moving, and Simon was just grooving on that dance floor, and I remember kind of being torn between like, oh, okay, what is this song actually saying, and just letting him do his thing, because he wasn't listening to the music, he was just dancing. And while, like I said, that wouldn't normally be the direction we would go, and most of the songs, honestly, that they played were pretty innocuous, but it wouldn't have been our normal family jam. But watching him kind of come into his own and move intuitively without ever having practiced. I mean, I've had people comment when we do our shuffle dances together, and if you're not familiar with this, we do these on Instagram. I think the hashtag is Sci Mama Shuffles. I'll put it in the show notes because I always get it backwards. It's either Sci Mama Dances or Sci Mama Shuffles. But people will say, get him in a dance program. You don't see guys with that much natural talent. And I'm like, Simon, would you like to go be in a dance program?
No.
He's perfectly content to just groove at home to the music that we do listen to. So that's been something that's been really fun to learn with him. And so the biggest thing that I really want to encourage you, this is not going to be a big, long episode. Teenage boys are not really into answering tons of questions, but I do appreciate you guys being willing to be here. And the biggest thing that I want to emphasize for you is find what makes your kids tick, whether it's ping pong or desserts, both of them, or sports, or, computer design or reading. We still do read alouds with all the kids. And I think I'm correct in saying that y'all still enjoy them.
Yeah, I do.
So we still do our folding clothes, which is not their favorite, but they do it.
Socks are the worst.
Socks are the worst. It's true. We still do our folding clothes and reading aloud. And each time on Mother's Day, if they write me a card, Simon will say, what about reading aloud?
I actually say thank you for reading aloud to us.
Yeah. So we've read Narnia. We've read Wingfeather Saga. I read those while I was pregnant and I absolutely cried. We've read the Green Ember series. We've listened. We do audiobooks together too, and they do audiobooks with their dad. And that's the other thing is that I'm not the only one investing in this teenage relationship. It makes such a huge difference that they also have a dad that they clearly know that loves to spend time with you. Any additions that you would say that daddy does that's really good, that makes you feel seen or loved?
He often takes us to work. We have some acreage and my dad takes us out there to work with him, and that's a really fun time to bond with daddy and kind of work together. And yeah, also the drives there and back, we just get to talk and it's just us.
Or listen to books.
Or listen to books.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Simon, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I already said you play sports with us, but you also play sports with us. I mean, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, it is. It's your love language. You like to move and you like to be outside. And I think it's a good sign of how much Ezra likes being around his daddy that he's okay with going outside when they go do those things.
Yeah.
I voluntarily do it.
Yeah. Like I said, that's their probably biggest differences of personality is the outdoorsy. Which it's funny that you say that because another thing that your daddy does to bond with y'all is he takes you on fishing trips.
Yes.
Yes.
And then you're fine with being outside. Yes. So he's quite the fisherman. And you like to be outside and do anything outdoorsy as well, including fish. So that he actually took them on a 10-day wilderness trip to the boundary waters between Canada and the U.S. And they fished and caught all their food and did all the manly outdoorsy things. So I want to say that as a reminder that it's helpful to have that support, but I know not everybody has it. So I want to encourage you that your positivity, your intentionality with your teenagers, your refusing to subscribe to the worldly motto of teenagers are the worst does make a difference. Even if you don't have the support of a spouse, even if you have other family members that are looking at them like, they have 3 heads and would they please just get past this stage and this is no fun, boo, hiss, all bad. So if you had one piece of advice to give to mamas who were wanting to grow closer to their teenagers, boys or girls, what would it be, Ezra?
Obviously to spend time with them. To look for things that they like doing, and even if it's not your favorite thing to do in the world, still to spend time doing it with them, to just be with them, honestly, to just hang out with them, even if you don't really enjoy the activity, they still will enjoy the activity and hanging out with you. And you can also find something you both mutually like that would be something to bond over. But yeah, just
be willing to make a sacrifice.
Be willing to make a sacrifice.
Yeah,
yes.
Don't make it all about you. If the assumption is that teenagers make everything about them, don't fulfill that assumption for yourself and assume that they're going to come to you. It is our jobs as parents to pursue our children's hearts and to really see them for who they are, which is a gift from the Lord. Simon, any tips for parents, moms, dads, either one, on how to connect with their kids?
Just to show, like, just make it apparent that you love them. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing, is just to not overreact's not the right word, but to just make it apparent that your main goal is that you love them, and that'll go a long way.
Yeah, I think that part of what he's saying is something that we all know to be true, which is, and I think you guys, if I say one negative thing and 100 positive things, which one sticks in your head more?
The negative thing.
The negative thing, and it's true of adults too. It's not just teenagers, but it can actually probably be a little bit amplified with teenagers because of the stage that you're going through and the brain development and the hormones and all of that. It can feel like nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm going to go eat dirt. And when the truth is, we are desperately trying to make that connection. We're desperately trying to be positive. So while this podcast won't go out to teens, some of you I do know listen with your kids and listen with your teenagers. So my exhortation to the teens, to you guys, would be to not have chips on your shoulders, to realize that mamas are people too. We have bad days. We have moments when we say things that are wrong. And sometimes we're not even saying anything wrong and the reaction isn't great. Like, I'll give you this example since I told the salad story. I'll give you the example of just the other day. We had kind of a get behind on cleaning kind of week. And so I was having a family meeting, and those are not Ezra's favorite. And we had a little tussle about, listening well. He's not interrupting me or anything like that, but I could just tell that he wanted to be somewhere else. And he came to me afterwards and in a very mature way said, I shouldn't have had that expression on my face, and I don't love these kind of meetings, but you're not doing anything wrong. You're right. We do need to work on this. We have gotten behind. And it was a great experience for me. What about you?
I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to say that, but it is definitely a humbling thing to do, to realize you're in the wrong here. And you do need to apologize. And it does help build character to do that too. Yeah,
and it is something that I have tried to model to all of my kids. And so that's, I feel like silly saying, like, isn't that right, kids, that I do this? But would you all agree that I apologize to you when I'm wrong?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm going to come and find them. And you're right, it doesn't feel great. But it's so essential that our kids see that we recognize that we're not perfect and that we need Jesus. Because how in the world can we go around telling them that they need Jesus and then act as if we are on some high horse of perfection and expect them to just climb up to us? Anything else you guys want to add today? Yeah, I know.
Classic boy fashion.
Yeah. Just smile and nod.
Smile and wave.
I think there were a couple of other things that they said when I kind of asked them this question back when someone first asked me, how do you make this connection with your kids? Simon said something like, well, you're just around all the time. So of course we spend time together, and of course we get to know each other, and of course we like each other. Which I did like that conclusion, that the fact that we're around each other all the time wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't like, you're around all the time, I wish you'd go away. It was like, you're here and we do life together, so we get to know each other. And there's friction, of course, but there's also a growing closer in that as well. And then Ezra, you said, I think when you were just thinking like, oh goodness, do I have to give you a specific example? You said you're kind. And that actually meant a lot to me. I think that I am a kind person, but I can also struggle with not being the most empathetic person, or like I have to fight sometimes, not for kindness, but for gentleness. And even guys need it. Even y'all, even these big strapping guys that are as big as my husband, need to be addressed kindly and gently and in ways that don't get their backs up. The Bible tells us that, it's talking to fathers, but we've talked about this before. If it's going to tell fathers not to exasperate their children, well, mothers shouldn't exasperate their children either. So let's look for the good. Let's look for practical ways to make them feel seen and heard and loved. Let's act like we like them, even if we're not in the best mood. And it will become its own wonderful self-fulfilling prophecy. And you will start to feel more and more affection for that really great young person in your life. I hope you guys feel encouraged today, having heard from Simon and Ezra, that it really is possible to have a good relationship with your teen, that teenagers are actually capable of teaching us a lot. They're actually capable of showing us our need for the Lord, but also our need to be creative and to stick in there. And just like we always talk about with Galatians 6:9, not grow weary of doing good, for in the proper time you will reap a harvest. And I am telling you, I've seen such a harvest in these young men, and I have been so blessed to see the Lord bringing fruit in their lives, and it is such a joy to me. And I think that you will find as you invest in your teens that there is joy there for you as well. If you guys enjoyed today's program, I would be so honored if you would subscribe and share with others. And if you're looking for more daily content on motherhood and biblical responses to cultural issues, you can follow along on Instagram at m.is.or.mama.